The diplomatic cruiser Lusitania's light drifted just beyond the ionosphere of Alaris, its hull glowing with artificial dawn. Elijah Voss adjusted the collar of his ceremonial tunic for the fifth time in 3 minutes, each adjustment somehow making it worse. It itched like a burlap sack soaked in static electricity and self-doubt. The garment had been designed by Earth's Cultural Integration Board to reflect harmonious elegance with minimalist flourish. Elijah privately suspected it had been designed by someone who had never worn clothes. "You look like a reflective fruit basket," June muttered into his earpiece. She was his AI aide, technically named Jun E6, but she'd insisted on the nickname and an optional sarcasm upgrade. "Thank you, June. Very diplomatic. I try." Elijah exhaled slowly as the cruiser's docking clamps engaged. Outside the viewport, Alaris turned slowly beneath them, a sphere of violet oceans and diamond mountain chains. Twin moons orbited lazily above cloud rings. Somewhere down there, waiting inside a fortress older than Earth's entire calendar system, was the Virelian court, and with it, Princess Serafine Valthara. Elijah had seen images. Not the official ones. Those were carved into crystalline slabs and sent via graviton courier weeks ahead. He found a rogue photo embedded in a data thread. She looked ethereal. Long ears like crescent blades, silver-black eyes that shimmered with unreadable calculation, and a posture that suggested she'd won wars using only disappointment. When the boarding ramp extended, he took his first step onto Ilarian soil and instantly sank half an inch into what he hoped was decorative moss. "Protocol reminder," June chirped. "Virelians bow from the waist but do not make direct eye contact, unless they're laughing, or angry, or interested in interspecies union, in which case—" "Shut up, June." The Royal Welcome Committee arrived in a triangular formation, wearing gowns that shimmered in ambient starlight and carrying staffs that doubled as translators, weapons, and, apparently, weather regulators. Elijah did his best not to trip as he bowed. A tall figure approached, each footstep making the moss hiss softly. "Elijah Voss, Earth representative," the figure intoned. "You stand before the throne of Virelia and the presence of her radiance, the voice of stars, Princess Serafine Valthara." Elijah straightened, hoping he looked more reverent than queasy. The princess emerged slowly, her robe trailing behind her like liquid shadow. Her long ears twitched imperceptibly. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second too long. "I am honored to meet you," he managed. "I am moderately curious about you," she replied without blinking. "Well, that's fair. Most people feel that way when they first meet me. Then they downgrade to annoyed confusion." A pause. One of the guards coughed. The princess's mouth tilted upward. "You are unlike previous emissaries." Hopefully in the good way. "That remains to be seen." He followed her through the inner gates of the palace, a gravity-neutral hallway lit by pulsating wall veins and holographic glyphs. Every time he tried to look casual, the walls made a judgmental hum. "Do you often make jokes when nervous?" she asked without turning. "I do. They're usually bad. One time I told a joke to a Dreluvian ambassador and accidentally proposed an economic coup. Did he accept? He counteroffered with a pancake treaty. I fail to understand. Most people do." The chamber for negotiations resembled a star map turned inside out. Hover disks floated in slow ellipses, each bearing a delegate or advisor. Elijah was escorted to his, which promptly lowered him 3 meters without warning. He landed with an undignified thump. "Your chair has decided it dislikes you," Serafine observed, floating gracefully into position. "Understandable. It has good taste." The first 3 hours of talks were a blur of multi-layered dialects, ceremonial posturing, and phrases like quantum good faith and reparations via cultural transfusion. Elijah nodded frequently, while June translated critical parts into English and less critical parts into limericks, just to keep herself entertained. During a recess, Serafine approached him near a fountain that emitted musical gas. "I find your presence unusual. Earth was not known for sending poets. I'm not a poet. Your words orbit meaning like moons. That is poetry. He shrugged. I studied xenolinguistics before they asked me to translate peace into people speak. And yet you tripped on the entry ramp. Elaborate strategy makes me seem non-threatening. She tilted her head, amused. It is effective. They stared at each other again. A silence spread like warm nebula mist. June interrupted. Your heart rate is up. Should I play calming ocean sounds or a slideshow of kittens in EVA suits? Silence, June. The princess raised an eyebrow. Is your AI malfunctioning? No, she's just enthusiastic. By the end of the day, the ceremonial signing had been delayed due to a disagreement about the correct number of ceremonial flames. Violins insisted on 13. Earth had only prepared for 10. I could lend them my last 3 birthday candles, Elijah muttered. Do they contain hydrogen sapphire cores and triple phasic heat threads? No, but one of them sings happy birthday in 5 languages. Later, walking through the palace gardens, silent except for the bioluminescent breeze, he glanced up at the sky. 2 moons gleamed down like curious eyes. She's different, he whispered. I heard that, June whispered back. No, not you. Her, I know, I'm just making sure you're aware that you're whispering to the sky like a badly written poet. He smiled faintly. I wish I could marry her. It was just a whisper, a thought wrapped in sound. No one was supposed to hear. But far across the garden, standing behind a drift of glimmering trees, the princess paused. Her ears twitched, and very slowly she turned. She turned. He froze. For a full 3 seconds, Elijah wondered if he'd spontaneously developed telepathy, or worse, accidentally activated a translation protocol that had just converted his whisper into a diplomatic proposal. She was staring at him, long ears angled slightly backward, a subtle sign of curiosity among violins, or possibly mild indigestion. He could never remember which. Good evening, he said brilliantly. Seraphine stepped forward, her robes trailing behind her in a soft shimmer that probably cost more than the entire Earth consulate's annual beverage budget. Her gaze held his, as if scanning his thoughts for logical structure, and finding only late-night snack preferences. You wish to marry me, she said. He flinched. That was hypothetical, metaphorical, whimsical even. You said it with sincerity. Your heart rate increased, your eyes dilated. Humans often lie with their mouths but not their biochemistry. Okay, but in my defense, I didn't think you had interstellar whisper reception. I have excellent hearing. I'm learning that, rapidly. She tilted her head. Is this a courtship attempt? I think it's a diplomatic misunderstanding with deeply embarrassing implications. I find it entertaining. Oh good, I was aiming for mortifying. Her smile was a fraction wider than before. Perhaps I should be flattered. Perhaps I should be vaporized. Unfortunately, we no longer vaporize guests for awkward declarations. Unfortunately, it made things simpler. She turned, and for a terrifying moment he thought she was leaving. But then she glanced over her shoulder and said, My answer is yes. He blinked. What? You asked to marry me, I accept. A bird-like creature squawked overhead in apparent disbelief. Elijah's brain attempted a full reboot but failed somewhere between did she say yes, and how many drinks did I have? The answer was 0. Unless ceremonial nectar counted, and he hoped it didn't. You're joking, he said. I do not joke about contractual unions. Then we have a problem because I do. Her lips quirked again. I suspected as much. She walked away, leaving him in a swirl of royal perfume and existential panic. June buzzed softly in his earpiece, clearly savoring the moment. Congratulations, she said. You just proposed marriage to an alien princess in a restricted diplomatic zone under full censor surveillance. Earth's PR department is going to need a defibrillator. Tell me that didn't just happen. Oh, it happened. And it was adorable, like watching a giraffe try to dance ballet. Helpful. Always. The next morning, he woke to two Virelian guards standing politely at the foot of his bed with ceremonial spears and expressions that suggested they'd rather be anywhere else. "Princess Seraphine requests your presence at the High Sun Pavilion," one of them said. "Can I request breakfast first?" "Breakfast will be provided." He followed them through sun-dappled corridors into a chamber made entirely of levitating glass panels, where the princess stood in midair on a platform that rotated slowly with the planet's magnetic rhythm. She was holding a document that glowed softly, probably a marriage contract or possibly a legally binding shopping list. "I have notified the council," she said. "They are displeased." "I'm not surprised. Your planet is unprepared for interspecies political unions. Honestly, we're still trying to regulate hover scooters. I admire your honesty. I admire your ears." She blinked. "Too much? Unexpected. Story of my life." One of her advisors entered, a tall, severe Virelian with facial markings that suggested he'd seen more treaties dissolve than Elijah had eaten sandwiches. "This union is a violation of the Saffral Accord," the advisor said. "It risks destabilizing centuries of cultural boundaries." Seraphine didn't look away. "I invoke the Heart's Accord." The room fell silent. The advisor paled slightly. "That law hasn't been used since the Maelstrom factions. It remains valid. The human is untested. He will be tested." Elijah leaned toward her. "I feel like this is the part where someone hands me a sword or a puzzle box. You will be evaluated for compatibility through 3 trials. 3. Can't we do like a quiz? They measure intellect, resilience, and emotional truth." "Oh, I'm only good at one of those." She smiled. "Which one?" "I'll let you know after the first trial." June, ever helpful, pinged his neural HUD with a pop-up titled, "Congratulations, you've been entered in an ancient marriage gauntlet," complete with celebratory confetti and a cartoon Elijah looking confused. The first trial took place in the Labyrinth of Echoes, a structure buried beneath Ilaris's third continent, where sound bounced eternally and thoughts echoed back as questions. He was handed a guidance crystal and told not to lose his sense of self. Within minutes, he was arguing with a voice that sounded like his high school geometry teacher. "Why do you want to marry her?" it asked. "I don't, well, I mean she's..." "That's not an answer. She makes me laugh, she doesn't flinch, she listens, that's rare. You barely know her. I want to, isn't that the point?" He emerged 4 hours later, covered in reflective moss and existential clarity. Seraphine was waiting. "Did you find yourself?" "I found out I talk too much to myself." "That was apparent. You always this supportive." "Only with potential spouses." Trial 2 was the Court of Minds, a panel of Virelian scholars who grilled him with questions like, define love using only gravitational metaphors, defend chaos as a form of order, and why do humans cry when fictional characters die? He got partial credit for the last one by quoting an old Earth movie, "Because we believe in stories more than endings." June wept a little. By the time the third trial arrived, an emotional simulation where Seraphine was placed in mortal danger and Elijah had to choose between her life or galactic peace, he was already ready to quit. He chose her. The simulation paused. The council was silent. Then a slow murmur of approval passed through the observers. Seraphine said nothing. She simply stepped forward, pressed her forehead to his, and whispered, "That was the correct answer." He whispered back, "I knew it wasn't a trick." She replied, "It was." June broadcast the whole thing to Earth by accident. Social media exploded. The next morning, Elijah woke to headlines that read, "Earthling tries to seduce alien princess, ends up passing space SATs." He turned to Seraphine over a breakfast of glowing fruit and protein foam. "This is all moving a bit fast. You proposed. Accidentally." "No one accidentally survives 3 ancient trials." He smiled. "You're not going to let me out of this, are you?" "No," he sighed. "Good, I was hoping you'd say that." Elijah sat very still as the Virelian high priest attached the ceremonial knot to his tunic. The knot was alive. Not metaphorically. It pulsed softly and emitted tiny electromagnetic hiccups that tickled his ribcage and had, at least once, zapped his nipple. "It's a symbol of sacred binding," Seraphine explained from across the chamber. "It's a symbol of biological harassment," he muttered. "It will settle in approximately 2 hours." "That's what they said about the Virelian cheese," Elijah replied, still haunted. The princess offered no sympathy, only mild amusement. Around them, preparations for the formal engagement declaration were spiraling into chaos. The Ilarian court had not hosted a cross-species union in a millennium, and even then, the last one had ended with a planetary embargo and a war over the definition of fondue. News of their alliance had made it to the outer systems. Earth's United Assembly sent a cautiously worded statement of support, which was diplomatic code for "please don't cause a war we can't afford." Meanwhile, the Virelian High Council issued a statement that Elijah was "a charming anomaly with an unfortunate habit of speaking." He took it as a compliment. June updated him every 15 minutes with the growing political fallout, summarizing thousands of angry messages from Virelian nobles, confused earthlings, and at least one sentient starfish who offered to officiate their wedding for the exposure. "I'm now tracking 47 assassination threats," June chirped during breakfast. "That's up 5 since you tried to toast your protein square with royal fire. That was an accident. You called it the marshmallow setting. It glowed pink. That's universal toast speak. I weep for your instincts." Elijah turned to Seraphine. "Out of curiosity, how serious are these threats? On a scale from political posturing to actual plasma blade, probably somewhere in the middle." "Comforting, they will not succeed. I like the confidence. I have a defense team, and an ancestral dagger that hums when danger is near. Mine hums when I microwave leftovers. You are a mystery." The engagement ceremony was scheduled beneath the Starfall Dome, a structure that used magneto-orbital mirrors to simulate a 1,000-year meteor shower. Seraphine wore a woven lattice of moon silk threaded with code script. Elijah wore another ceremonial tunic and prayed this one didn't have living accessories. At the signal, they stepped into the circle of union. The officiant began reciting ancient vows in triplicate, once for the mind, once for the body, and once for the soul. Elijah did his best to follow along, nodding at what he hoped were appropriate intervals. Somewhere behind him, June whispered, "Do not sneeze during the binding clause." "Why?" "It rhymes poorly." Everything was going unusually well until the High Executor arrived. Tharzan stepped into the dome like a thundercloud in a tuxedo. He was Seraphine's uncle, war hero, council head, and professional glarer. His ceremonial robe contained more military medals than Elijah had years of life. He walked straight up to them, unsmiling. "This must end," Tharzan said. Seraphine did not flinch. "It has already begun. The court will never approve. Then the court is behind the times." He turned to Elijah. "Human, you are welcome to return to your planet with your dignity intact." "I didn't bring much," Elijah replied. "I pack light. Your attempt at humor is noted and irrelevant. Most of my humor is like that." Tharzan glared at Seraphine again. "There are protocols. Protocols are not sacred. They are tradition. So were duels. We outgrew those. We can bring them back." "Please don't," Elijah muttered. June chimed in. "For the record, I am not calibrated for swordplay. My current combat mode involves projecting annoying elevator music." The executor frowned deeply but turned away, robes swirling behind him like a thunderstorm in retreat. Seraphine exhaled softly. "That went better than expected. He didn't kill me. He considered it. But killing you would be inefficient. He prefers public humiliation." "Why am I not reassured?" They completed the ceremony without further interruption, though Elijah accidentally dropped the ceremonial seed stone and had to chase it across the platform while the choir hummed the song of eternal commitment. He retrieved it just in time to hand it to Seraphine, who accepted it with a smile that made him forget what embarrassment was. Afterward, during the post-ceremony reception, held in a zero-gravity banquet hall, Elijah floated beside a spherical food tray, trying to stab a drifting cube of something purple with a fork that refused to obey basic physics. Try the blue one, Seraphine advised. It stabilizes your inner ear. I'll believe anything right now. She guided a cube to his mouth. It dissolved instantly with the texture of fizzy snow and the taste of spicy citrus. Elijah's balance recalibrated. That's magic. It's chemistry, but I understand the confusion. I'd kiss you right now if we weren't surrounded by floating diplomats. Some of them would applaud. One of them would faint. Correct. They laughed. The floating orbs blinked gently around them. June hovered in a containment drone nearby, playing romantic jazz with a bass line that resembled a dancing squid. Elijah glanced over. She's getting sentimental. She updated her subroutines to include emotional nuance. I didn't authorize that. She overrode your permissions. She does that a lot. I find her entertaining. You would. Hours later, back in their temporary quarters, Elijah looked out over Alaris's twin moons. Behind him, Seraphine moved through the soft blue light, removing pieces of ceremonial attire and humming a tune passed down through royal lines. He turned. We did it. We survived the ceremonial stage. And now, she looked at him. Now we prepare for the backlash. He nodded. Let me guess, more trials. No, political theater, bureaucratic siege, emotional diplomacy. Worse, much worse. He walked to her, took her hand. Do we have a chance? Statistically, no. He smiled. Good, I like a challenge. She smiled back. We have convened an emergency session to address the potential diplomatic ramifications of your engagement, Wheeler announced. Please report to the tribunal within 72 Earth hours, preferably sooner. Bring snacks. Elijah blinked. That can't be good. Seraphine calmly finished programming a warp itinerary. The tribunal rarely convenes unless someone violates universal laws or disrupts the gravity market. Do we count? We interrupted 5 trade treaties, 7 planetary customs, and 1 religious ceremony dedicated to a moon goddess. That one wasn't my fault. I just sneezed. You sneezed into the sacred flame. It was dusty. Seraphine didn't argue. She just handed him a datapad. What's this? Alliance Etiquette Protocol. I assume there's a summary. Yes, don't speak unless addressed. Don't use idioms, and don't joke about weaponized dessert. I made 1 joke about killer pudding, and suddenly I'm on a list. 2 jokes. Fine, but only one involved pie. They boarded the Silver Wren, an off-the-books Virelian cruiser captained by Seraphine's childhood friend, Kale Draven, a retired military strategist turned interstellar smuggler turned poet. Kale welcomed them aboard with a sweeping bow, a mechanical eye that clicked with every blink, and a vest covered in what Elijah suspected were stolen royal teaspoons. So, you finally decided to burn the rule book, Kale said. I didn't mean to, Elijah replied. You never do, that's why you're dangerous. Seraphine raised an eyebrow. He's also inconveniently charming. Elijah beamed. You think I'm charming. Only inconveniently. Kale led them through narrow halls lined with magnetic paintings that rearranged themselves depending on the ship's mood. Today, the artwork displayed a scene of a pigeon pecking at a laser cannon. That's new, Seraphine said. The ship's feeling sarcastic, Kale replied. As they prepared to enter warp, June appeared in the main console, her avatar now shaped like a small floating cat wearing glasses. Good evening, she purred. I've uploaded tribunal procedures, scheduled your wardrobe fittings, and reserved 3 separate apology bouquets in case things go wrong. Only 3, Elijah asked. I'm budgeting optimism. The jump to tribunal space required slipping through a ripple corridor, an unstable shortcut in subdimensional traffic. Kale piloted the ship with one hand, quoting poetry in the other. Elijah, he said mid-sonnet, if we don't survive this corridor, I want you to know I've always liked your hair. It's incredibly disorganized. Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me mid-wormhole. The Silver Wren twisted through the ripple corridor, leaving behind a stream of compressed reality and confused particles. When they emerged, the stars rearranged themselves politely. The tribunal station loomed ahead, a rotating latticework of crystal, steel, and low-level paranoia. Inside, representatives from hundreds of species waited. Some floated in aquatic chambers. Others shimmered between visible wavelengths. One was definitely a sentient fog. Elijah stood before the council podium wearing a tunic reinforced with anti-sweat fabric. Seraphine stood beside him, unmoved by the diplomatic stares. Velar Quinth began the session. We are here today to determine whether this engagement constitutes an intergalactic threat, a political anomaly, or an inspirational miscalculation. That last one sounds nice, Elijah offered. It wasn't meant as a compliment, Velar said. Various species raised objections. A Marthesian ambassador argued that cross-species unions destabilize genetic sanctity. A Tharn representative claimed emotional unions cause psychic dissonance. A floating jelly being wept audibly and declared it was too beautiful to comprehend. June broadcast select footage of Elijah's trials, the labyrinth, the court of minds, the final choice simulation. The tribunal fell silent as the footage of Elijah choosing Seraphine over peace played. Again, Velar sighed. Is that jazz? Yes, June said. I added music for emotional clarity. You edited diplomatic evidence with jazz. Lo-fi jazz, June corrected. A Chivari delegate floated forward. Let us ask the obvious. Why does the human wish to marry the princess? Elijah cleared his throat. I didn't plan it. I didn't even think it was possible. But then she smiled at me like I was a hypothesis worth testing, and suddenly I didn't care about rules. I care about her, not as a symbol but as a person. The jelly being wept again. Velar looked pained. And you, Princess Seraphine. I choose him, not for politics, not for rebellion, because I found someone whose chaos matches mine. A pause followed. Then an older counselor leaned forward. Very well. According to subsection 18A of the Organic Union Clause, there is one final condition. Of course there is, Elijah muttered. You must pass the trial of public sentiment. June tilted her avatar's glasses. I've read that clause. You're making that up. I am invoking it, the counselor said. Effectively the same. You want us to go on a press tour, Elijah said. Correct. Across multiple planets. Correct. With interviews. Correct. June, find me a corner to cry in. Already mapping options. The council ruled. Elijah and Seraphine were given 40 planetary cycles to prove their union was not only real but beneficial to the galactic collective. Failure would result in sanctions, political exile, and mandatory romantic separation with tissue supervision. Back on the Silver Wren, Elijah collapsed into a lounge chair. We have to win over the galaxy. Seraphine sipped tea. It won't be difficult. You're confident. I'm royal, we fake it well. Kale chuckled. You'll need more than charm, you'll need spectacle. June floated between them. I suggest starting with Zyril 9. They love underdog stories and interpretive dance. Elijah groaned, I'm doomed. Seraphine smiled. You're married, it's the same thing. The first time Elijah Voss walked onto a Zyrilian talk show stage, he tripped over a floating microphone, bumped into a light drone, and accidentally greeted the host in a dialect that translated to, "Oh, great collector of damp towels." The audience roared with laughter. The host wept from joy. The segment was broadcast to 17 billion viewers. You're a hit, June said afterward. Not for your eloquence, obviously, but for your general squishiness. I'll take it. Their press tour became a phenomenon. Seraphine, poised and endlessly witty, answered every hostile question with such precision that even her critics began composing tribute essays titled The Elegance of Defiance. Elijah, meanwhile, leaned into his accidental stardom, delivering offbeat metaphors and quoting obscure Earth films to explain complex politics. On Yaltris Prime, he explained interspecies unity by referencing the communal nature of pizza toppings. The audience applauded for 11 minutes. Their story spread faster than hyperlight gossip. Children painted their faces like Serafine and tried to stretch their ears with magnets. Merchandising exploded. June licensed bobbleheads without asking. Earth's media dubbed the couple the gravity pair. Serafine hated it. Elijah secretly loved it. The backlash persisted but softened. One by one, planetary blocks rescinded their objections. Old laws were reviewed, ancient clauses revised. Even Tharzan, after appearing on a documentary about emotional growth titled Even I Can Blink Twice, issued a reluctant blessing, by which he meant he stopped glaring whenever Elijah entered a room. "I think he's warming up to me," Elijah said after a state dinner. "He only called you a structural inconvenience once," Serafine replied. "That's basically affection." They returned to the tribunal with 24 hours to spare. Wheeler Quinth met them with a stack of reports, several petitions, and a very long list of questions. "Your approval ratings are inexplicably high," he said. "You've inspired pro-union demonstrations, cross-cultural art collectives, and a new dessert named after your first kiss." "It tastes like anxiety," Serafine noted. "With a raspberry finish," Elijah added. The tribunal assembled. The final vote required unanimous consent. Elijah fidgeted while June displayed analytics, testimonials, and a musical montage involving every time he'd been punched, insulted, or accidentally married over the course of the campaign. The vote passed. The chamber erupted into dignified applause, emotional sobbing, and in one case, projectile confetti. "You did it," Serafine said. "We did it." Technically, June did most of the logistics. "Please let me have this moment." June sniffled, "I'm so proud." They returned to Alaris, not as fugitives or anomalies, but as envoys of a new alliance. Serafine took up a post as high liaison to the Multispecies Council, crafting diplomacy like an artist with laser thread. Elijah became Earth's ambassador at large, giving lectures with titles like Love in the Time of Bureaucracy and How Not to Offend an Insectoid Diplomat, a memoir. They were married again, this time by choice, with a ceremony held in orbit above Alaris in a crystal dome tethered to 3 moons. Kale officiated, wearing his teaspoon vest and quoting romantic poetry translated into 5 dialects, 4 of which were mostly accurate. During the vows, Serafine looked at Elijah and said, "You're still strange. I've had time to get stranger. You're still human. Can't win them all. And I still choose you. Lucky me." Later, while drifting above the planet, watching auroras bloom in silence, Elijah asked, "Did you ever think it would work?" "No," Serafine said, "me neither. I thought we'd be executed by week 3. Same, but now look at us. We're a minor constitutional precedent and a popular board game. Is this what love feels like? No, this is what revolution feels like. I so love with paperwork.